This is Making Lemonade.
We had to run away because the drumming was so...
Was that the most memorable drum groove you've heard?
Yeah, it's the best drum groove ever. I think people are going to sample it and put it in their music.
I see. So for the audience, those that don't know, this is Josh and Leonard from Snakeweed Studios. And Josh Wei is a Singaporean record producer and songwriter, co-owner of Snakeweed. He's worked on number one hits for Gentle Bones, JYP Stray Kids, Steven Spielberg and Rachel Platten. Leonard Susay is also a co-owner of Snakeweed, a Singaporean record producer, mixing engineer and recording engineer. One of the most significant figures in the Singaporean music industry, has worked with Electrico, Park Jelly, Ronin, and internationally with David Bowie, Kylie Minogue, and John Lennon, and Nokia Ringtones.
Yeah, Nokia Ringtones.
Tell me more about that.
This happened in the early 2000s when Nokia first moved to Singapore. They moved their Asian headquarters here. And then they reached out to a few companies to actually pitch for ringtone production.
I see.
And Snakeweed was actually involved with the production of all the original ringtones from the start.
I see. Wow, that's so cool. And was that kind of the start of Snakeweed? The formation of it?
No, actually Snakeweed started as a bedroom record label in the late 90s. This happened because I felt there was a very vibrant underground music scene, which was not tapped into, and there were a lot of bands at that time who just needed a platform to perform and showcase their music. But what was lacking was actually proper recording, because most of the bands who were from the underground were just recording onto cassette tapes, like demos in jamming studios and then releasing them. But it was hard to get that kind of music out to the public because people would say, "Oh, the quality is damn lousy," like cannot compete with the West and all that. So we decided to start Snakeweed and produce like this music professionally and get it to sound as close as possible to what was coming out from the West.
I see. So the Snakeweed was kind of a way for the kind of underground musicians to record things well and then have it out. So what was your kind of vision of it at the start when you started it? Coming into the future.
It actually started way before that. I lived in Canada for quite a period of time. I went to school there and I also went to music school there. But when I finished music school, it was when the West was going through a recession. So it's very hard finding work. But what I used to do was to just go to like jamming studios and just ask bands if they wanted their music recorded. And I would just, bring an 8-track recorder and just record them live. Yeah. So that was where I honed my skills in recording. Then I became a bum. So I didn't do anything for about a year. A whole year I spent on my couch just watching TV, like waking up and then just watching HBO the whole day. And I had no direction at all. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. And one day there was this program on it was on Discovery Channel and it was called Revenge of the Nerds Part 2. Yeah, so it featured the life story of Bill Gates and Steve Jobs, the founder of Apple. And Steve Jobs actually built his first Apple computer in his father's garage.
I see.
But he didn't know what to do with it. So he quit school and then he decided to go into the Pepsi offices, barge into the vice president's office and said one line to him. He said, are you going to spend the rest of your life bottling carbonated water? Or are you going to come join me change the world?
He asked the CEO to do that.
Yeah, so he asked the vice president if he wanted, if that was what he wanted to do.
Yes.
And the vice president called security, so they came, they took Steve Jobs and they threw him out of the building. But
I thought it would be the other. I thought something nice, like inspirational, would happen from that.
No, but what happened was he started thinking about his own life. He started thinking about what the guy said made a lot of sense. So he actually went to find out who Steve Jobs was. saw the Apple computer. Then he quit his job at Pepsi and joined Steve Jobs in the
he really
garage. Yeah,
didn't need any more carbonated drinks.
to create and market this computer.
Giant that there is now.
Yeah. So at that time, I was a bum still. Like just lying on my couch, and what Steve Jobs said, right, also woke me up, because it made me realize that was I going to spend the rest of my life sleeping on my couch watching TV, or was I going to try and do something to maybe not change the world, but to make a difference to society and to people's lives. And with the skill sets that I had, like recording and all that, I realized that in Singapore we had so much talent, but then there was nobody that was pushing.
Like a bottleneck for.
Yeah, there's nobody pushing the talent out there, because at that time no one wanted to listen to local music because of the stigma that came with it. People thought that local music sucked. They thought that there was no talent here, and then like everyone was focused more on education, on being doctor, lawyer, engineer. Like if you told people at that time you wanted to do music, they'll tell you that. Especially parents would not actually encourage children to follow that path. But when I came back here, I saw like a lot of opportunity. So that's why we set up Snakeweed to help all these bands, all these talented people, to give them a place, like a place to showcase their music. Music that could be professionally produced and then released, and then also using our connections to push it to the media and get the media involved, so that the media can push local music out to the public.
Yeah, and it's no easy feat to like start a record label. There's so many things you have to go through, and over the years there's so many record labels that came up and then they didn't survive. But Snakeweed is one of those. And also as a recording studio, I shared before, like I was intern at Lion Studios. It's kind of a bit defunct right now. But also going back to something that you said, like you were in Canada for a while.
Yeah.
So Josh, you also went to LA for a bit, right? What's kind of the rationale to going to somewhere else?
For me, so I left Singapore when I was about 21, 22. But I had started working in the industry probably at 17. So it had been a good 4 or 5 years of already working in Singapore. And I was very fortunate also to have done quite well in Singapore with some of the acts I was working with. And I think after like those 4 or 5 years, it just got to a point where I felt like I couldn't grow anymore. And the acts I was working that I was working with at the time, it did get a little stagnant. It's we were all at the top already, and I felt like that's not something that I want at my age. I did feel like it was a little out of my control at the point when I was 21, 22, and that I was limited by the market in Singapore. So that was the rationale behind me deciding to want to go to LA, where like the sky's the limit when it comes to this kind of thing.
Yeah. So I think like from what I'm hearing, the vision is kind of aligned, that like Singapore needs something to kind of push the boundaries of where it is at. Like Josh went to LA, Leonard was in Canada, came back, also saw this need, and like maybe I can ask about like how you met Leonard actually.
Yeah, so I actually met. Well, I would say my first kind of the first milestone or the first break I had in my career and kind of the start was this competition organized by Thunder Rock. Thunder Rock. It's Thunder Rock School, and the competition was called Thunder Band Slam, and it happened to be held at Singapore Poly, which I was attending, which we are from. And it wasn't my band, but I was playing violin for our friend's band, Cliff. So we joined the competition. We didn't win, but Leonard was a judge. and and that was actually at that competition through Thunder Rock was where I met many people that have played like a really, really big part in my life, in my career, which I feel like without them I wouldn't have been here. Like Leonard is definitely one of them. Esther Lowe is one of them. These are really people that helped me a lot at the start. So I met Leonard there, and then I think a couple months later I did my internship at Snakeweed Studios when I was like 18.
Yeah. Okay, we'll get into how everything happened, and now Josh is a co-owner. But Leonard, what was your memory of Josh at the time?
Memory of Josh. I remember, I actually do remember the competition, and there's a video online of that performance and of my comments as well. So I remember saying like, the band's talented, the violinist is the one that's carrying the whole band. But
That's a good
at the
comment.
same time, I was also working with Esther, producing her EP, and then I remembered Josh playing the violin, so I asked her, why don't you put violins in your track?
Yeah.
And then she was like, okay. So I think she reached out to him and asked him if he wanted to do that.
Wow.
And that was how we actually...
5th January.
It's a connection.
I remember it was a big day for me. My first.
How did you feel? How did you feel on that day?
I felt great. I mean, I it really a lot had to do with that competition. I think I got my first exposure to what it would be like working in the industry, because like the people involved in the competition, they were all like industry professionals, like Leonard, like Esther. They were teachers, they were session musicians, they were, and that was like kind of the first time up close I saw like, oh, this is what it's like to be a professional. And I had people to look up to, and I had things to like aspire towards, and so that was like really important for me.
I see. So I guess we can talk a little bit about the music scene back then. I think about this somewhere around 8 to 10 years ago. And then also the music scene in the 90s and coming to now. So maybe we start with the 90s. Like, what was the music scene like? And in the climate that Snakeweed was trying to push for.
Back in the late 90s, because that's when I came back to Singapore. Back in the late 90s, the music that was very popular worldwide was alternative, grunge, metal, because Metallica was huge. Nirvana was the biggest band around. Pearl Jam, Stone Temple Pilots. So that culture was actually not very mainstream. It was very underground here. Whereas people in the West, like in America and Canada and all that was mainstream already. Yeah. But over here, when I first came back, it was more pop centric. People were not really listening to metal, especially, and not listening to so much of the grunge bands. But all the kids were playing that music.
All the young
all the young kids were playing. Young people who were in bands were playing, Nirvana songs, doing covers of metal bands, but they were also writing their own stuff, which reflected what they were listening to and what they were covering. And a lot of the songs were really good also, but they just nowhere to go. No place to play, no gigs at that time. And then even if you had gigs, right, they were mostly organized by the bands themselves. They would go to the community center, book a room, and then just throw a gig there. Rent some equipment from our boy who owns TNT. Yeah, so our boy is a legend when it comes to like developing the scene at that time also, because he was the one that was providing gear and equipment for all these underground gigs.
I see. Okay.
So in a way, we kind of like worked with these guys, worked with our boy, and we organized some shows. We got like a lot of the bands to play at these shows, and then from there I got some of the journalists to come down also.
I see.
To come and at least just watch the bands play, and then do a write-up in magazines, in newspapers. So they did that, and then from there we went to radio stations. So I remember like going to 97, Power 98. I think that time wasn't called Power 9. Knocking on the doors, and just asking like, can you please play? Yeah, can you please play local music? And then giving them CDs because at that time everyone was just recording on cassette tapes, but we bought a CD recorder, a proper CD recorder. So
Digital.
we digitally could record all the music and then bring to radio stations and say please play. And I made friends.
How did they react to you asking?
Most of the radio stations at that time would tell me that, we can't play local music because most of the programs were actually bought. The airtime was bought by advertisers. So they need to play stuff that was very popular.
I see.
That people wanted to listen to. But there were a few few stations that had DJs who were like-minded people, who listened to this kind of music.
Yeah.
And they said that they would try, just slip in like one or two local songs and then just let it pass. But when they did that, they got calls from parents. So it was really funny because I remember I was sitting in a radio station with the DJ who happened to be Paul Zach. Paul Zach was the editor of the live section at the Straits Times, but he also had his own radio show.
I see.
And there was this parent that called in and say, "Why are you playing this kind of music? Because my son is not studying now; he's listening to your show.
He's playing music,
and you are influencing him to want to go and play music with his friends." And
that's dangerous. Music is dangerous.
So it was funny, but then it actually inspired us to do even more.
Oh, it's like kind of like antagonism.
Yeah, I mean, we felt like, there are so many kids trying so hard, like we are trying so hard to get the local music out there.
I see.
And Paul Zach was actually a champion of local music. Like he would play as many local songs as he could, and he did that during his show also. And it was through his show that actually people started listening to local music that was being produced at that time.
Wow.
And Sue was the other person that actually helped also, because Sue had her own show on 987, and she had this local music hour every Saturday. But it wasn't prime time. It was like when people not at home, people not listening radio, then they gave her that slot so that people won't complain.
Thanks to those radio DJs for doing that.
And Maddie Tan also. Maddie Tan also started playing a lot of local music, a lot of metal, a lot of alternative.
Metal also. Wow.
Yeah. Maddie was a huge metal fan.
I see.
Then it was through that, right, that the media got more and more interested. But then the problem was, because the music that they played was still not commercially viable in Singapore. Rest of the world, yes, but not in Singapore. And the media, the people in charge of the media, like the bosses, told me, you go out, you bring back something that we can sell. Like this kind of music, very hard to play on local radio. You do something with a band or with an artist that people can listen to, that is more commercial, which is more pop.
Yes.
So at that time, there was a band that I thought would be suitable for this, and they were called Electrico.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so we produced Electrico, and when the first single was released, they were signed to Universal. So being signed to Universal, they were, I think, one of the first acts to be signed by a major label here in Singapore. So with the major labels push, with radio stations push, they managed to get the song out there, and it became like a number one song in Singapore.
Because
it was I Want You.
I see.
Yeah. So because of that song and because of that band, and it was very commercially produced also, because we actually did the mastering all in the States. I mean, we did all the production here, but the final touches we did in the States. So it came back sounding very foreign. Yeah, foreign. So, a lot of people didn't know they were local at that time. Yeah. And this set the standard, because then after that, we had Ronin, we had Park Jelly, we had the Great Spy Experiment. So these four bands were the four bands that we pushed out at that time. All sounding commercial, all produced professionally, all mastered in the States.
Yeah.
And when the four songs came out from these four bands, they each went to number one.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was like back to back to back to back. So when they were all like switching number one spots, right? That was when the media was thinking, hey, actually people do like local
like the
music and
music.
people are listening. So then the media got involved, and then suddenly you see like a lot of jamming studios opening up, and then you see a lot of music instrument stores also.
Oh, I see.
Yeah,
So
because
that's where
then-
the explosion comes.
Yeah, so that was the explosion, because last time we only had Sweely and Yamaha, you know, and City Music. But then because of the explosion, right, a lot of music stores opened at Peninsula.
I
So
see.
it created a small industry at that time.
Yeah. I visit Peninsula. I just was there the other day also. So many stores there. Oh yeah, okay. So speaking about radio, like Josh, you've had like a few number ones on radio, right? And like so recently, I think we were talking about like 2010 when you kind of emerged into the market.
Me?
Yeah, like as a producer.
No, 2020. I only started producing in 2017.
2017.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So like, so we've heard like a little bit about like how it was before, and then maybe you can share a little bit about like how your experience of like how is it now. You're signed to Universal.
No, not anymore.
Oh, not anymore.
Was signed to Universal.
Okay. And then working with artists and all these kinds of things in the Singaporean music industry.
Yeah. I think that, I mean, I don't know how Leonard feels about this, but I feel like I was extremely fortunate because I started at a time where, you know, if you call like Electrical and Ronin and Puck Jelly and Great Spy, and you know, if they were one wave, I definitely just happened to start at the next,
second wave.
The
yeah.
second wave.
Yeah.
I if my music history is correct, I really think it was the next
Yeah.
wave.
So the next wave was
it was like Gentle
Gentle
Bones,
Bones, yeah.
Sam Billows,
Yeah.
you know,
Charlie Lim.
Charlie Lim, you know, and it was like the indie folk singer-songwriter pop kind of vibe. That was like the vibe, and it was fueled by YouTube. Like at that point, I don't think Spotify even was really a thing yet.
Yeah.
In 2000 and
like 12, right? Something like that.
13, 14,
Yeah.
yeah, maybe 13, 14. It wasn't really even a thing yet. But you know, these artists gained a lot of traction by doing covers on YouTube.
Yeah, I remember
Yeah.
I saw Jeff was showing us, like our
Yeah.
lecturer was showing us the home, like Sam
Correct.
Miller's did. Oh,
Yeah.
you are in that video.
Yeah, I was in that video. Yeah. But like YouTube drove like a big part of this growth.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I just happened to start music around that time. I only started producing in 2016, 17, but I started like
Oh, yeah,
playing.
as a
Yeah, I
session
started as
musician,
a violinist, a
those
session
things.
player, and that was about 2012, something like that, 2012, 2013, and that's when like the boom started. So I mean, I was really, really fortunate to have been around for that time, and so what the landscape was like back then. I mean, at the start, I remember like the first couple shows that I was involved with Joel. It was like a small pub kind of thing. Maybe like 20, 30 people would come, but 20, 30 people like knew all the words
Wow.
to the songs. Like
Yeah.
I didn't even know all the words to the songs. They knew all the words to the songs.
Yeah.
And so while it was only like 20, 30 people, I knew like that was special. There was something there.
Yeah, they were like real fans.
Yes, there was like something there. And so that's how it started. And I mean, and even for, you know, the Sam Willows, like, you know, you had these kids going to the shows, like being real fans of like, you know, of the
That's
members.
special.
Yeah, and that was something that was special, and you know, it eventually grew to a point where, you know, we could sell out the Esplanade 2 nights in a row, and now you had like thousands of kids knowing every word
Wow.
to the song, and so I mean, it was like a whole vibe. Like I would say it was a whole like wave of where you know, kids were really listening to like local music. They were spending their pocket money to come to a show, and you know, things things like that.
Yeah. What do you guys think about like the state of it now? So that was like 2010, 2015, somewhere there.
Yeah.
Like now we're in 2021.
Mm.
How do you think it's changed, especially like from each of the things that you've shared?
I think like before it, like before now lah, it was like musicians needed help. So you know they had help from producers, labels, management and stuff. But nowadays things have changed because of COVID also. Like musicians are actually now producing stuff at home.
Yeah.
You know, they're doing it themselves. They're releasing stuff online, you know, because it's become so easy to get your music out there now.
Distributors, everything.
Yeah, you know, you can just put it on Spotify and then try and market it yourself. So the whole industry has actually shifted also. So it's become more of a DIY kind of industry.
I heard bedroom pop a lot.
So there's a lot of like bedroom pop, you know, there's a lot of music that is professionally produced also at home, because nowadays you can buy software, you can buy, you know, plugins which are really high quality, and these are stuff that even like the professional studios overseas are doing, you know, are using. It's very affordable now, and I see like a lot of new talent coming up, you know, like Shy MP3, you know, who's doing stuff by herself, you know. And
she's doing some by herself.
Yeah,
She's self-produced. Yeah.
Oh wow, okay.
You know, and even like Jasmine Soko, when she first came out, you know, she was self-produced, self-recorded everything. And also because of the schools that were offering music education courses.
Oh yeah, that was a big
you know. So before all this happened, you know, there was nothing. You know, like if you wanted to learn about music production, you probably had to go overseas to learn about it, or you can enroll in one of the specific music education courses here.
Yeah.
But then once you finish your education, you come out and you find that actually there are not many opportunities to work because, you know, by the limited number of studios that Singapore had.
Yeah.
But now, you know, you don't actually need like a recording studio to actually produce your own music. You can do it in your bedroom. You can do it anywhere. You know, you can go to Starbucks, sit at the corner, and even like, you know, you can just make a beat down there and then
like how has that, you know, like all this kind of like bedroom production. You guys run like a studio. This studio has been here 11 years, 12 years.
Yeah.
And then the previous location was like 10 years.
Yeah.
So how has that kind of changed the way the studio works from the old days to now?
Yeah, so initially before Josh joined, right, I saw that if I continued doing what I was doing, you know, it would probably fail.
I see.
So I needed new direction and new blood.
Yeah.
And Josh had just come back from America, and then, you know, I gave him a table space here in this room where he put his computer, and he was doing his own production here with headphones while I was recording bands, you know, doing stuff. And then Josh came up with a proposal, because he said, like, you know, like why don't we just change the whole concept and, you know, like make it more a vibe rather than yeah. So we did a lot of renovation, changed the whole vibe, got new gear and everything, and then Josh also built his own production room.
Yeah.
So now we are more self-contained also. So it's a very, like, I would say high class bedroom recording studio. You know, so we make it like a community. People can just come in, you know, they can hang out in his room, watch the giant TV there. Sometimes
I thought that was the cat TV.
Yeah, we got cat TV, but sometimes they can come and watch Netflix or, you know, Disney Channel. And it doesn't really feel like a recording studio. Like a lot of the people who come here, they say that it feels like home.
It's like home.
Yeah. So we try to actually give them this very home kind of feeling, you know, where they can just come, sit down on the couch, you know, eat outside, chill out with the cats. There are people who come and play with the cats just to play with the cats and then go home, you know.
Yeah, I realized there's like quite a few cultures in this space.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
That's like a very important part of like how we want the studio.
Like an intentional choice.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, Josh was telling me the other day that the writing room is a vibe room. Like,
Yeah.
can you tell me more about like what a vibe
I think,
is?
and I actually think that's something that I picked up in LA. I mean, I learned a lot of things in LA, and my mentor there, his name is Eve Rothman, and I guess when I went there, I had a certain mentality about how music should be approached, and not that it's completely wrong. Like, I still hold on to a lot of things about that mindset, and I still use them today. But I think when I was there, I really saw how people in LA did it, and I saw how Eve was doing it, and like vibe and like mood and things like that were like very, very important parts of like the music creation
Of the writing
process.
process.
And me, like, coming from Singapore and coming from a, I guess, kind of a regimental,
Vistera.
yeah, at first I was like very, very cynical and doubtful of
Of vibes.
yeah, I was like, vibe.
What
like,
is a vibe?
Music, like, the notes are the notes, you know. But yeah, the way they would do things is like, you know, they come in at 1 in the afternoon, and if sometimes it's like there's no vibe in an hour, then just call it a day. You know, call it a day, go get coffee, go to the beach. And then you start to realize like that's actually a very effective way to
It's
create.
like part of the formula.
It's part of the formula to create things that are new.
You need a vibe.
If you're regimental,
Yeah,
like, you'll
because-
probably be able to create things that are you know, done before.
Because creativity that has no time. Like, you can't
Yeah.
book the studio, say, from 1 to 5
I
and
wanna
then
be creative
expect
at
to
3.
be, you know, sometimes
Yeah.
you're most creative at 4 in the morning.
Yeah.
You know, like, you wake up and you have this brilliant idea. So we try to make it such that, you know, when people come here, there's no pressure. You know, we don't say like, oh, you book from this time to this time, you have to finish everything by this time to this time.
Yeah.
And we give them the freedom of doing that, and then that's when
So
actually
they can like kind of have flexible kind of.
yeah. So
timings.
it takes away the pressure. So when they are not under any stress or not under any pressure, that's when they suddenly become
And the creativity comes.
yeah. It just comes out. Yeah.
And ultimately, like, the if the songs are not good, no matter how well recorded it is,
Exactly,
it will not
yeah.
do well. And I think this is like a really, really important thing, especially in a small industry in Singapore. In like a very, very big, like, robust, you know, industry like in America, the studios can, I suppose they can really just say, like, we're focused on getting the best recording, because there's the infrastructure is so developed. Like, you have songwriters,
Yeah,
you
they
have
have
this,
different
you have that.
camps for different
By the
things.
time they come to your studio, like, everything else is settled, and if it's not, they have teams of people working there to settle it. Here, it's not like that, and I think I you know, I think we really see like the studio, it has to like serve that purpose
Yeah.
of making sure that we do our part to help the songs, you know,
Yeah.
the quality of music,
Yeah.
not just the quality of recording, but like the music actually like be at the top level.
Yeah. Like, in some sense, there isn't anywhere to vibe in Singapore.
Yeah.
I mean, to each his own lah. I mean, they're nice,
Yeah, yeah.
nicer
We shouldn't say
studios.
that, yeah, they're nice.
They're nicer studios,
The studios
nicer places.
I really like. The
Yeah.
studios I would book, you know.
I mean, like, Lion has also the vibe,
Has
a
right?
vibe,
Lion
definitely,
Studio,
definitely.
yeah.
Yeah, Noiville.
Yeah,
has a vibe.
Noiville has a vibe.
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
like all these studios now, like, okay, compared to what studios were, say, 10 years ago or 15 years ago, you know, like those were more sterile. But nowadays, you know, like, a lot of the studios are opened by younger people who actually went to school with you guys, you know, who have parents who invest in them or who have savings, you know. I mean, they start small. They rent a room somewhere, and then from that room it grows into something bigger, and it becomes very not sterile.
Yeah.
Like what Josh said. Now it all depends on the vibe. So for me, because Josh has brought this thing here, this vibe here, you know, that's why it's, to me also, like, I enjoy coming to work. Like, enjoy coming in every day, because, you know, like, I can come here and chill. I don't even need to work, you know. Sometimes
It's a
I
vibe.
just I
Yeah.
just come here, you know, like, when there's nothing to do also, I come here, feed the cats, and sometimes I just play back some of the old songs that I've done, and then cringe, then think like, or like, why didn't I do this last time, or and it's a learning experience for me also.
It's nice to get inspired. Oh, actually, I was talking to Art Fazil like earlier on in this season. He was saying that actually Singapore can have an industry because we have 5 million people, right? He said if just 10% of the people just started listening, we could have an industry. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I think you don't even need 10%. 1% also can already. Yeah. Now we stand at I think 0.00025%. So if you just get like 1% of the 5 million people, right, it's actually quite a lot for the artists to I wouldn't say exploit, but like it's something that they can survive on.
Like 500,000 people.
Yeah. No, 1% is 50.
10%,
Yeah, 50,000.
20% is
50,000.
But imagine 50,000 people buy your music. And if you think about it, right, if you think about the States has what, 300 million people?
Yeah, roughly.
Close to 4 right now.
Nah, I don't
Close
know the
to
exact
4
number.
million, 400 million. If you sell 1 million copies down there, you're already like a platinum artist, you know. 1 million copies of your music will make you very, very rich, very, very popular. But 1 million out of 400 million is how many percent?
We don't do math in musicians.
Okay, 10% will be 40 million.
No, it's 0.3.
Yeah, maybe. I guess.
I mean, 1 million out of 100 million would be 1% lah. So out of 300 million would be, or 400 million would be 0.25.
Yeah. So you see, it's still like 0.25% of the population.
Yeah.
And if we can get our numbers right to around there, right, we also be like, okay, like, you know, can survive. The musicians can actually make money and survive from that. But we just need all 5 million to go and listen and buy local music.
Yeah, and
government can force everybody to buy one.
mandated.
Yeah.
It's like okay, shouldn't talk about the government.
Yeah. You buy one local music song, you get one vaccine.
Actually, I do think that they are trying to do stuff like that, like trying to promote all these kind of things also.
Yes, they are, but the problem with our country is, I think, is because arts and culture is not considered an essential. You know, it's there. We have a small scene. I mean, but it's not the main focus of our country and our government. Like, the main focus is economy.
Yeah.
So the minute, right, the music industry, right, becomes profitable and makes a lot of money, that's when you will see. You know, it's a chain reaction. It's like how last time, you know, nobody wanted to listen to local music. Then suddenly when radio starts playing, press starts hyping up local music, then you see all the shops start opening,
I see.
jamming studios start opening.
It's like a progression.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, you know, life has lots of challenges. And like, I like to ask about some of these challenges. Like when you have lemons, you know what you do? When life gives you lemons.
I heard this saying before.
Not very good, I see.
Huh?
Okay.
When life gives you lemons,
Make lemonade.
no, you eat durian.
Okay, yeah, so I want to ask about I'm sure there were some challenges, especially starting the studio, running the studio. Like what was that like?
I think for me, I've been very, very lucky and very, very blessed, because when I first started the studio, I was thinking, how am I going to survive? Then Nokia came in. So Nokia, I mean, like, that was a very, very big deal for Snakeweed, and it kept the studio alive at that time. So the money that we made from Nokia, we pumped into producing all these producing all these bands, like bands who didn't have enough money. You know, we would, I mean, just
Help them out.
it's not an investment. It's an investment in the scene, but it's not an investment where we see the returns, because we think long term, in long term lah. So if we can get like 4 or 5 bands successful, right? These 4 or 5 bands go out, 10 other bands will see that, hey, where did they go? Where did they record? Or, then they would come. So it kept the business growing. It kept the studio alive. And that's what has been happening for the past 21 years.
Big brain.
Yeah. And right now also, we still like invest in people that we believe have what it takes, or have the talent, or have the drive, but who cannot afford to pursue their dreams. So we try to facilitate that by giving like huge discounts, or even like doing some stuff for free also.
I see. Well, that's like really a bit sacrificial, like really like long-term, big picture kind of thing.
Yeah, you have to see the big picture lah. It's not a sacrifice to us.
No, you'll be jaded very quick.
Yeah. It's not really a sacrifice, because we don't see it as it being at our expense. Because we have to think of in terms of sustaining this industry, also of sustaining the artists, so that they have a future, and then if they do become successful, they will still come back.
That's nice.
Yeah, many of the things that I'm sure many of the things that Leonard did at the start of Snakeweed led to like people like me, people like Gentle Bones and Sam Willows, and he definitely laid the foundation for people like me to exist, and I think that's why it's very important for like us to do the same lah, And so that's something we definitely want to continue, because it is like a big picture. And everyone has different ideas on how to get there. Even Leonard and I have different ideas. We believe in different methods in order to forward the industry and our peers, our industry partners. Like everyone has a different idea on how to do it, but I think like we all want the same thing. And so I think it's good. Everyone's just trying to to make this work.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've come to like the last part of the show, and at this part I usually like to ask the guests about like kind of like an emotionally difficult situation you've gone through, like maybe running the studio or as a producer. Like music is not an easy industry lah. So do you guys have any experiences like that?
I think for me, I don't get emotional over a lot of things.
I see.
Yeah, like if things happen that are bad, then I just tell myself, like it's just something that we can overcome, and then we learn from it, and then we try not to make the same mistakes twice.
I see.
Yeah.
For me, there definitely have been difficult moments, but that has always led to something better. Like two distinct moments in my career that were a little bit more difficult was, for example, one when I was 21, 22, before I moved to the States, I was very, very jaded, and I would even remember telling Leonard, like I don't feel like I can grow, I don't feel like I'm moving forward, and that was a very difficult place for me to be in, and like I even remember telling my dad, who like didn't look like he was that supportive at the start.
Yeah.
Like Asian parents, and you're doing music. And I remember when I was 21, 22, I told my dad, hey, maybe I just like study business, or like I do something else.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I straight up told him I was that jaded.
Wow.
I was that jaded, I considered like taking an SAT or something like that and just studying something else. And like he of all people told me like, are you nuts? Like you spend so much time and effort doing this, and
that's a good reminder for you.
It was like a great reminder,
Yeah.
And then I decided to go to LA, so it was like a difficult period, and then I decided to go to LA, and recently, like I came back from LA, that was not planned at all. It was like COVID. It was because of COVID. Like it put me in a very difficult position. The whole industry was basically shut down for a while. And so I came back and I was very, very down as well. I was down because like I wasn't moving forward, and then it led to this.
Yeah.
So there's difficult periods, but they usually lead to something better if you approach it with in general, the positive mentality and like problem solving kind of mindset.
Okay, that's great. Actually, so we can round this up with maybe some tips from Josh and Leonard. I guess one is positivity for like anyone in the scene that wants to get it going, or like maybe start a studio. Like, do you have any tips for people in the scene?
I think my tip would be, you really have to, and I'm sure Leonard would say the same thing, you really have to love music. Because when you go through the most difficult times, which that's inevitable, like it's very unlikely you will have a perfect smooth sailing career in this kind of industry in this country. It's like
tough.
It's extra tough. And if at the minimum you don't love music, like you will not have a reason to continue when things get tough. In other lines, if you don't like your work, like there's stability, that's a reason to stay. There's maybe lots of money, that's another reason to stay. Like you run out of reasons quick in the music industry if you don't
passion is the big reason.
If you don't love what you do. And for me, like sometimes I go back to like the first few records that I really listen to, like my guilty pleasures, so to speak. And then I remember why I really, really love doing this. I also believe in like, the betterment of like the industry here. That's like another big reason why I love doing this. That would be one of my biggest advice, is to
love music.
To have passion. A real passion, to do it for the right reasons. I mean, on top of that, obviously, resilience, having good work ethic, good. I think good money management would help as well. That's probably a good thing.
For me, I guess what I'd like to say is, if you choose, it doesn't have to be music, but if you choose anything that is not the norm, it's the path that is less traveled. And the path that is less traveled to me, right, is more challenging, but somehow, like if you are able to overcome all the obstacles and just trudge your way through, right, you will somehow be more rewarded at the end. It's more rewarding because you would have achieved things that other people have not achieved or wouldn't be able to do so.
That sounds so exciting. Okay, so we've come to the end of the podcast. Thanks to Josh and Leonard and Snakeweed Studios. You can hear the sound. We're recording into Snakeweed Studios. So this has been Making Lemonade, and join us next time for more Singaporean musicians.
Yay!
Alrighty.